wellness is often considered important to businesses, but it's maybe important, kind of at like the very bottom of the list. It's never considered to be top of list, like absolutely critical thing. When someone's thinking about building a company, they're not like, oh, what kind of wellness perks can we include in this idea, right? They just don't think about it first, right? So what do you say to that, right? I mean, what should people do when they're, as someone who's built companies like these before, and as someone who does this currently, what do you say to that? How do you structure everything?
Way better.
Melissa,
Fair enough. I'll go first. No. So what I usually will say to people is that many times when you're building a business and it's what are we putting our money towards and what can we do and, oh, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I will use the cliche of you can't afford not to. And what we know about that is if you look at, and I will throughout this, I do pull in data and research because I say it's not me, it's science that's taking things away. But the science and the data shows us that the reason that 2/3 of startups fail, it's not just because they don't have the right product or they didn't have the money or the investment, but it actually is the mindset and the well-being of the founders. So much of it comes into play about the burnout. And I can share with you all the studies if anybody's interested in looking at it. But we see in terms of the relationships, so the ability to communicate and to have those conversations, the way that we're looking at our identity, all different aspects, but also just taking care of ourselves. When you're trying to do too much multitasking, it actually reduces your productive time by over 40%. And so when there's all of these different things that are happening, and when your employees, even if it's employee number 2, employee number 3, but even employee number 1, taking care of yourself, being able to have someone to check in with and to have those conversations with, that we know that it can be very lonely at the top. For anyone that has ever started a business, it can be really lonely at the top, right? And you have holding all of this weight on your shoulders. So who's that person that you're talking to, and how do you have that outlet to be able to process that? It doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be a coach. It can be other people in that space. It can be a group of other founders that have that conversation. But many times what we're seeing, and having been in this space for years, that's the last thing that is invested in. Because how am I going to justify that to my investors that I feel selfish that I'm focusing on myself? Or I want to make sure that I'm taking that time. And so I'm feeling like I need to put 80 hours a day into my business, and then I want to come home and I want to be a good partner or a good parent or whatever else. And what gets cut out? My sleep. And so now I'm going to bed 3 hours later and I'm sleeping for 2 or 3 hours to make that happen, but now I can't focus as well as I want, so I'm not delivering as best as I can. And so many times it's shifting that thinking and reframing it to recognize that when we are taking care of ourselves and when we're taking care of our team, they see that. It's not just throwing money at it, but it's really that investment that you care about that person and you're hearing their needs and also taking care of yourself. Just like we say, put our own mask on first. So when we're really focusing on the well-being piece comprehensively, then we're in our best mindset and our best place to really build that business and to make those difficult decisions and to respond to challenges.